Before I call upon Mr. Sashi Krishnan to take over, his brief profile: Chief Investment Officer, Birla Sun Life Insurance. He joined the organization in December 2011 and has a rich experience of over 25 years in the mutual fund and life insurance industry. He has an extensive experience in equity and debt markets. Prior to joining BSLI, Sashi was the Chief Investment Officer at Bajaj Allianz Life Insurance Company. His previous assignments include leadership roles with DBS Bank Singapore, DBS Cholamandalam Asset Management Limited, and Unit Trust of India. Shashi is the member of Index Policy Committee of India, Index Services and Products Limited, and also was the co-chair of Life Insurance of the Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry. On that note, I give you Shashi.
Thanks. This panel doesn't need any introduction, so I won't waste so much time. I think all of you know everyone on this panel. Actually, we had a very interesting session because we started the day with a regulator and we ended the day with a policymaker. And the regulator in the morning, interestingly, told us that he's disappointed that there are no flows into the domestic financial markets. He obviously attributed that to the grey market. The policymaker, I think, at the end of the day, told us that we need to get the retail investor back into investing, possibly into PSU shares. So obviously, I think the job of this panel becomes that much more difficult because you need to give us a view and also, I think, make a convincing case to all those people sitting out there that there is a case for equity. And why I asked this question, and I will go around the table, is that 2013-14, 2012-13 was a difficult year for equity markets. So the first question I would ask is, do you think 2013-14 will be a year of hope for the equity markets or will be a year of despair for the equity markets? And why I ask you this is very simple, because if you look at the average CPI for the last 5 years, and I'm talking about equity as a long-term investment, the average CPI over the last 5 years was something like 10.36%. And equity markets, at least the broad indices, have not delivered that kind of returns. If you look at the broad indices, the Nifty over the last 5 years delivered something like 3.77%. Even the CNX 100 has delivered only something like 4.32%. Let's not talk about the mid-cap index at this point of time. So, Nilesh, let me start with you. 2013-14, a year of hope for equity markets, a year of despair for equity markets, or you wouldn't go to either extreme?
I think we'll have market where hope will also prevail and despair will also prevail. It only will depend upon which side of market you are. Sometimes being long will give you despair, sometimes being short will give you hope, but eventually things will turn around and you will be happy if you are long and probably unhappy if you are short.
Thanks, Nilesh, for that. Rhythm, I know we had the bond panel before us. And, the bond panel, as somebody rightly in that bond panel said, when there's doom and gloom everywhere, the bond guys do really well. And bond funds have given dramatic returns. Some of them claim to have given double-digit returns, and they have given double-digit returns. But even if you look at the CNX, the Crystal Composite Bond Index, on a 1 year basis, it's given a 9.15% return. And even on a 3 year basis, it's outperformed the equity markets, giving a 7-8% return. So, what do you think 2013-14 will be for equity markets? And if you sort of compare them to bond markets, you think they will outperform?
I think you started with the comment on the CPI and the index returns. I think it's pertinent to note that corporate earnings in the last 5 years have doubled. And markets have not gone anywhere. In fact, if you measure it from the peak of 08, actually markets are down 15%. So we've gone through a substantial derating in equities, justifiably in my view, because the starting point of valuations were very rich. And now I think equities are better than fair value. So I think we've reached a point where if you take a 3 to 4 year call, then I think I'm very confident that equities will beat bonds, it'll beat gold. On a 1 year basis, as Nilesh pointed out, I think there will be a bit of volatility, but my confidence is that even on a 1 year basis, I think equities will do better than bonds. So the best of bonds and gold, I think, is behind us relative to equities.
Just one line.
Yeah, sure, Nilesh.
When the advertisement says that my retirement plan is my debt fund, the equity market is near the bottom.
Great. Right. Sunil, let me take this question to you. 2013-14 for equity markets, and as Rhythm insisted, what are the next 5 years as compared to the last 5 years?
Hello. Frankly, I am an optimist, so I will have a very optimistic view on the equity markets. I think one thing I'd like to add, as Rhythm said, last 5 years we have seen the earnings double. The market has not done anything. I think it's like, climbing 18,000 feet and then coming to 17,000 and saying I'm lower than what I was last year. So when you are comparing the last 5 years, we are comparing with absolute peak to a situation where we are facing the most challenges. So I think it's very, very unfair to compare on a point-on-point basis. The second thing is that, yes, there are challenges, but there will always be challenges. So if the bond fund guys are very optimistic about making returns, that means we are looking at interest rates falling. And I think the best returns in the equity markets are made when interest rates actually start to fall. So I think looking at all this and looking at, the very, very, you can say, low expectations, we would be very optimistic about returns being made. And all said and done, we discuss so much about all the negative things which are going on. But actually, if you see, we are still, 10% off the all-time highs, which is probably very, very few countries in the world will have that situation. So I think, you have to look everything in overall perspective rather than just a few things.
Mihir, you also run a offshore fund, a fund that invests into international equity, if I'm not mistaken. And the fund that invests into international equity, if I'm not mistaken, made a return of something like 13.5%, 13.8%. So why would you go back to an Indian investor and tell him that, or even an overseas investor for that matter, and tell him put your money into Indian equity when, your fund, which primarily invests into US and European equity, made significantly better returns in this 1 year? And even if I look at the last 5 years, I think they have made, returns that are superior to what the Indian equities would have made.
Yes, you're right that in the last 5 years, international equities has made much more money for the investors. But I think a lot of it is because of the currency. And the way the currency is behaving and the way the government has taken steps to make sure that the current account deficit comes down, or at least stabilizes at some point in time. We're not that bearish on the currency at this point in time. If you look at the long-term fundamentals, we are talking about global GDP growth long-term of 2%. India at about 6 to 7%. So the GDP growth differential is huge. And again, looking at the long-term picture, if you look at the 10 to 15 to 20 years returns, India's dollar returns are about 9% per annum. And this is something which not even China has matched, even though it's grown faster than India. No other market in the world, in my view, has given these kind of returns in the long term, even in US dollar terms. So I think 5 years is a long time, but I'm an optimist because I started my career in 1994, and that was my first introduction to equity markets. I started off as an MBA. At that time, the Sensex was, within 2 months of my entering the mutual fund industry, the Sensex touched 4,500. And we were very happy because it was after this 92-94 boom, and we said, yeah, the right choice, perfect market to be in, perfect career to make. And for the next 8 years, that 4,500 was never seen. In 2002, the Sensex was 2,700. So point is, 5 years is a long time, but it's not that long if you look at the thing, because if I had left the industry or stopped doing what I do for a living, then I would have missed all the run in the next 7 years, which was from 2,700 to 20,000. So I think we have to be there, and I'm a bull on India, and I don't see any reason to give up that view.
Sure. So I think I hear you saying that you can't afford to be out of the game. Ramdev, may I just sort of push this question on to you again in terms of 2013-14 for equity markets, a year of despair, a year of hope, and the next 5 years? No, Ramdev, you.
Yeah. Shashi, one of the things about Indian stock market is that it's very cyclical in character. And I started my career in 85, and that was the first boom when I was an analyst. And it's a boom bust is a culture of this market. And I don't know what leads to that in business cycles or the money supply or whatever. 85, 92, we have Harshad Mehta boom. Then 2000, we had dot-com boom. Then 2007, we had global credit boom of Lehman Brothers and all. So this market has been characterized by very methodical, time series kind of thing, 7-8 years, boom and bust. And almost the portfolios go, for some people goes 100 times and comes back to like 1/3 kind of thing at the bottom of the market. So again, we are going through the same phase. We had our great time in 2007-8. And now this 3-4 years of correction, and you don't know whether, valuations are corrected almost 45-50%. Earnings have grown and is still growing. Interest rates are kind of falling off, and I don't know what pace it will fall off. But I'm reasonably sure that withdrawal of the investors are so total that now death of equities in India is being talked about in public forums. Means we are close to some kind of a desperation. Now, can it last for another 6 months or so? I don't know. And we have a huge political change in horizon. Because markets go up, because 15p can go to 30p only on the change of the opinion. And the change of opinion is generally it is led by political changes. One of the large factors is the political changes. And we have in horizon making of a huge political change. So maybe right now we are in very bad shape. Maybe some more time of this kind of challenging time. Earnings are slow, but still growing. And as the year closes, you will have much more clarity of what kind of political change you will have. You will have a positive political change, or will you have even worse political change? So I think those things will decide the course of the year. But if you talk about 5 to 7 years kind of cycle, then after 2007, maybe we are due for 15, 16, 17, some kind of a boom. Why it will happen, I don't know, but we are due for that.
Sure. So we've at least got 5 optimistic fund managers in this room. Nilesh, let me come to you. Does the macro really matter for Indian equities? Because, we've seen significant deterioration in the macros. In fact, as somebody rightly said, the only word we seem to have heard from this morning is, a deteriorating current account deficit, right? And I think we would have heard it in every panel from every speaker. And therefore, hopefully I'm just giving you a warning. Maybe we don't want to hear it from everybody on this panel again. But we've seen that even in years where, GDP growth has been bad, corporate fundamentals haven't been so bad. Like, as Rhythm pointed out, you actually seen earnings growing over the last couple of years, irrespective of wherever the macros have been. And therefore, do you really think the macros matter? And if they matter, where are they going to impact equity markets the most in the next couple of years?
It's not that macros don't matter, but they are not the only thing that matters. And especially when we have a crooked version of macros, and I repeated this yesterday, but I'll again repeat it over here. I have a daughter who is appearing for 10th exam, and she wants to be an engineer like her mother, and I want her to be a financial person like me. So I'm, making her watch the television, and then she sees macroeconomists and macro strategists giving all kind of statement. So in one particular show, there was one gentleman who was talking about how US should not, embrace fiscal controls, how US government should be spending money, how US Fed should be liberal, and it was a 10% deficit to GDP. And after an interval, he is in the same breath talking about how Indian government should control fiscal deficit, how RBI should tighten policy, and it was at 5.2% deficit to GDP, and then it became 4.8%. So when the laws of economics are applied differently for white people and differently for black people, then macros don't matter, but otherwise it matters. In today's environment, we have clearly seen that there are companies which have delivered value and wealth for shareholders irrespective of what happened. We have seen sanctions during nuclear war, we did. Then there was Kargil war, then there was 97 Asian crisis, then there was scam, there were assassination of prime minister or prime ministerial candidate. All kinds of things have happened, and in spite of that, if I see my bank, it's up 78 times in the last 15 years. Why didn't Indian investor pick up that investment? That's the real question to be answered. Macros or no macros, good companies will always deliver. If the pitch is bad, it doesn't matter to Sachin Tendulkar. He'll still go and score a century. It is your job to go and pick up Sachin Tendulkar rather than XYZ.
Sure. Very interesting perspective. Rhythm, I just wanted to quote, something I read. I read a quotation of Warren Buffett where he said, "Stop trying to predict the direction of the stock market, the economy, or elections." And why I said this is because I was reading a report of yours which said, India strategy report of yours which said Indian election dossier. And I think that came out, just a week back, if I'm not mistaken, where you actually went on to say that, government expenditure tends to rise in an election year, that there could be renewed activity on the reform front if elections come through, fiscal consolidation could be under threat, but more important than all that, you also concluded saying markets are likely to be fine as it starts pricing in a favorable outcome. So do you think elections are going to be so important, taking off from where Ramdeo left?
Yeah, I think I'll take off from where Nilesh left it, which is that on an individual basis, these factors have varying degrees of importance through cycles. All put together, they all impact the equity markets. I mean, valuations, earnings, interest rates, macro, politics, they all matter to the market at various points in time. Their degree of importance varies. At this point in time, the market seems hypersensitive about politics, which is why I wrote the note. It also was targeted at a group of overseas investors who struggled to understand the nuances of Indian politics and all the players in there. So that was the purpose of that research. But the bottom line here is that right now the market is hypersensitive. Over time, it will lose its sensitivity to politics and will move on. In the long run, I think what matters is earnings and the price you pay for it. So if you're paying a reasonable price for a good stream of earnings, generally speaking, the outcome is that you will make money on the stock. And election cycles will come and go, macro cycles will come and go, and they really will not impact. As Nilesh highlighted with a stock, you can probably line up so many ideas, and I'm sure Ramdev can do that best over here. Starting from 1985, about companies that actually just looked through macro cycles and grew earnings and delivered returns. So at this point in time, yes, the market is sensitive. I think as time passes, it will actually get a bit more optimistic. From being pessimistic about elections, it will start pricing in a favorable outcome. If you look at the last 5 election cycles, going into the elections, the market tends to expect a better outcome. That's the way the market behaves. So I think that's what will happen. So
I think you're trying to say that in the long run, politics is really not a danger to equity markets, and you need to look at earnings and other more fundamental things.
Obviously, the political environment sets the stage for earnings. So if you describe to me a political environment that's broken for a sustained period of time, it will destroy growth, and then in that case, it will be difficult for companies to actually perform. There will always be exceptions, but generally speaking, it will be different. So let's not say politics is not crucial, but these political cycles, are not the critical element in making money. What's important is whether a company can actually create cash flow and the price that you're paying for that stock.
Right. Sunil, you were talking about interest rates, and I remember a 1999 Fortune article of Warren Buffett where he said that interest rates act as on financial valuations the way gravity acts on matter. And the higher the rate, the greater the downward movement. And I think you said something very, very similar, where you said that almost 60% of companies in India are so interest rate sensitive that if interest rates move down, EBITDAs can actually change dramatically. So if we do believe that interest rates could fall, and that was a view we heard in some of the previous panels, where the debt panel actually said that they look at rates coming down by 50 basis points, and even the housing finance guys gave us a view that they expect interest rates to come down. Do you think this would make a dramatic difference to earnings and corporate performance?
See, there is definitely one category of companies which would be impacted very, very positively. So as I have said earlier also in a few discussions, that there is this second tier group of companies where nearly 50-60% of their EBITDA is interest cost. And there, even on the interest cost itself, if you save 10-15%, the impact on PBT can be as much as 60 to 100% for a lot of companies. So yes, if interest rates were to fall meaningfully, then definitely there is going to be a very positive impact on earnings. However, earnings would also be impacted significantly positively if the environment changes and the top line itself grows, because that again would have a big boost towards the PBT, because the contribution then therefore goes up. I think one point I would like to just add here is that, China, for example, has no current account deficit. It's a current surplus country. It has no fiscal deficit issues, and yet the markets have been doing nothing. So it's not that a country has a current account surplus and they will do well, and a country has a current account deficit and it won't do well. So I think that is one more thing which we need to highlight. And the other thing is, as you said rightly, everyone is talking about current account deficit. People who never knew about current account deficit, which will include people like us who just focused on picking up stocks, I think we are focusing too much now on current account deficit and fiscal deficit. So yes, it is important, but it's not the end and the beginning and end of life.
Right. So let's get down to picking stocks rather than talking about the current account deficit.
To add to that point, the country with the worst CAD and the fiscal deficit today is about to hit an all-time high.
Right. Good. Mihir, India's been one of the largest beneficiaries of FII flows. So we had 35 billion, if I'm not mistaken, from beginning of 2012. I think nobody's come near to us. I think even if you look at Brazil, it's got some 11, 12 billion. If you look at Korea, it's got again 11, 12 billion. I think global easy liquidity situation, we've seen all that. Do you see a risk of this over-dependence on, foreign money? Because, as a fund manager who's raising international money to put into India, do you see this as a risk where, if there is a slowdown in the quantitative easing, if, for example, global flows stop coming back into India, we won't be able to manage the immediate impact that it would have in equity markets, irrespective of the fact that the long-term story may still be very good?
Yes, in the long term, yes, it is a risk, and you obviously don't want to be a country which depends on foreign equity flows to fund your current consumption in terms of the current account. But the point is, if you look at the global macro, things are so bad out in the West, which is pretty much 60-70% of the global GDP, that interest rates out there are not going to go up in a hurry. So we'll have more of these QE, more of low interest rates, zero interest rate, negative real rates for a long, long time in the West. Pretty much like what we see in Japan for the last 20 years. So yes, that's a long-term concern, but I don't think that's a concern that we need to be worried about in the next 2, 3 or 5 years. Because in spite of all the negatives that we have, we are lucky to be in a position that even in a very bad case scenario, we're still talking about a 5.5% GDP growth. Whereas countries are struggling to say that we're growing at 1% or 2% out there in the West. So relatively speaking, the Indian differential of GDP growth rate will continue. And to that extent, interest rates are low and will continue to be low globally. And we will continue to see flows, I would say. And the fact that we haven't even really begun to tap the debt market, overseas debt market investors in a big way. We are increasing our limits in steps. One of the reasons why Indian equity flows are so large compared to other countries is because our debt markets are not free to foreign investors. There are controls. So a lot of the people who want yields are actually investing into equities rather than debt. So Indian equity investment by FIIs is also a reflection of the scarcity of Indian debt abroad. And we have a long way to go in attracting FII debt flows. And I think for the time being, we are okay.
So in short, you don't think that money will stop flowing into India?
No, it doesn't look like.
Ramdev, you were talking about the political situation, and one of the fallouts of this political situation has been this slowdown in the investment cycle. You talk to businessmen across the country and they say it's very difficult to do business, we don't get approvals and stuff like that. And therefore I will take you back to, Warren Buffett's 2012 letter, where he has said that there's been a lot of hand-wringing last year among CEOs who cried uncertainty when faced with capital allocation decisions. In spite of that, at Berkshire Hathaway, he allocated something like $10 billion. So he says that, you really shouldn't be looking at these kind of situations when you're allocating capital. You need to look at whether it's viable for the business, it's good for the business. So where do you see this ending, this entire fear psychosis about investing back into the businesses and the investment cycle reviving in India?
I think there are two types of investments among the industrial investment also. One is the what private sector does based on their business economics. I think that is going on broadly smoothly. If you are you see in automotive, whether Bharat Benz has come up or whole lot of the truck companies have set up their billion-dollar plants. You see the two-wheeler companies, they are setting up plants left, right and center. So I don't think those kind of investments, I mean they have troubles in putting it up, but those are somehow or other, they are coming up. Plant for soaps or, I don't think for the consumer goods, for textile and all, there is any issue. I think the real problem is the infrastructure, where the government interface is there. When you go to do business, where government interface is there, for whatever, for permissions, for licenses, for completion of the projects or for payment or whatever, I think you have a terrible experience. And it has become more terrible in recent times. I think somehow the bureaucracy and relationship between bureaucracy and business has come to, whether domestic business or international business, there is some kind of distrust have been developed in last 3-4 years. And that's where the governance probably comes to play, where political change or current political establishment has to see to it that because all the magic of jobs or growth is being done by businessmen. And if the businessman is not able to do business, where is the jobs and where is the tax collection and even the distribution to the rural India? So I think there is somewhere disrespect for business, and that particular mindset change has to happen either in the current government. Hopefully it happens now, and earliest the better. And I am not seeing that enough change, whereby, see, you cannot export more. See, this CAT problem. You can either export more or import less. Now, export more is not your option, but import less is definitely your option. But import less, for that you have to kind of produce more of those things, iron ore or gold or whatever you need to do. But when you go to do that, you need permissions. So I think that's where the whole thing is stopping. And I think that our people in Delhi, they realize very well that jobs are important, and they need to create conducive environment. And even if you see that today's speech of our Prime Minister, they are trying to say that a businessman is welcome and all. But at his level, it is definitely welcome. We don't doubt the sincerity. But down below, when you come to absolute district level and implementation level, I think experiences of all the businessmen is terrible.
Yes, I remember you saying that I won't put my money into sectors that are, significantly impacted by government policy. At some point of time, I think you made that statement.
Yeah.
Now, I think you're now saying that, I think the investment cycle is going to start, revive a little bit, and therefore maybe I'll start looking at investing in those kind of companies.
I don't think I'll ever bet on that.
You're not betting on that yet.
I think valuations have corrected big time.
Okay.
Since when government-facing company and consumer-facing companies. But I think the shape of governance it is in India, unless we see some dramatic shift, or some of the segments are deregulated, or I really can't figure out how you can make money wherever government has a predominant role to play in your outcome. I don't think so.
Okay. Nilesh, I just wanted to come talk to you a little bit about the investment styles, because I think I was reading an article of yours a couple of days back where you spoke about, 3 investment themes that you would play out in the current year, that is 2013-14. I think the first you called polarization, if I'm not mistaken. The second you called currency depreciation, and that's a very interesting play, because the currency panel told us that this is going to be the decade of the dollar, and please don't underestimate the level to which the rupee can depreciate, without scaring anybody over here, but that's what they told us. And the third you talked about was contrarian investment, where you said that there is a widening gap between valuations of some of the large companies and some of the smaller mid-cap companies. You see opportunities in all these 3 spaces. So what would be the key themes you would play, in 2013-14 as an equity investor?
The polarization is something which we all have witnessed. If we see consistently over last 15-20 years, market has only rewarded good governance companies, good earnings growth companies. They have never rewarded a company which was run by X buy or Y buy. If I take a poll over here, how many of us are holding those quality companies in our portfolio? I can guess very few hands will go up. but each one of us will have our sins in the form of an aquaculture company or a granite company or a bulk drugs company or a technology company or an NBFC company. So my recommendation to every investor is that on the Kali Chaudas day, we do a puja in our home whereby we try to take kachra out. I think we should do an annual puja on our portfolio also, trying to take kachra out. Most of us have kept kachra inside and thrown quality outside. So polarization is invest only in quality, quality and quality. That's what has been rewarded in the past. That's what is going to be rewarded in the future. The second thing, without knowing the experts on the currency side, we had taken a view that rupee can depreciate. And more important than the currency depreciation, the government of India, under pressure of current account deficit, will encourage exports through commerce policy, through other steps. And this kind of creates a sweet spot for some of the exports related sectors, be it technology, be it pharmaceutical, be it engineering exports, be it automobile components. These companies, by virtue of benefit of currency depreciation and export subs provided by the government, will be in a position to outperform the market in the next year. The third is the contrarian investment. Today, mid-caps have corrected significantly. A lot of them have corrected for right reasons, but some of them have corrected with side effects. There's nothing wrong with these companies, but because broad market has corrected in mid-caps, they have also suffered in the side. This set of companies which have good governance practices, which are dividend paying, and which are today available between 40 to 70% discount to their large cap peers, a portfolio of these companies, not just one or two stocks, but portfolio of these stocks, hopefully will outperform the market in the next year to come. So this three theme of quality, exports, and Valya trying to become Valmiki and ended up giving Ramayana to you. If you create this portfolio, I think that should outperform the market.
Rhythm, in your recent report again, where you've said what's your style, if I'm not mistaken, that's what you report. You've again harped on this quality issue, where you've talked about free cash flow and you've talked about ROE. But more interestingly, I'd love you to discuss how you see investing into these quality companies. You've also made two very interesting statements. You've said since the global financial crisis, quality, price momentum, and consensus have been the best style of stock purchasing. And, it's these two words, price momentum and consensus, that intrigue me, because, if you go back to, a lot of what Warren Buffett, for example, has said, he says, you don't automatically make money by buying what is popular and do well. But you still seem to suggest that the global style is moving towards momentum and price momentum and consensus.
No, Shaji, that's been the style of the last 5
Yeah.
years. So, my definition of quality is slightly different from Nilesh, so I have to qualify that. So I'm defining that by more objective metrics like ROE and free cash flow. Governance is an overriding theme that's harder to define actually, though we all know about it. And that has worked extremely well in the last 5 years, not just in India, everywhere in the world. People have gravitated to stocks that have stocks of companies that deliver very high ROE and high free cash flow. And that's the protection that investors have sought in the aftermath of the financial crisis. What it also means is that price momentum has done well, because these stocks have done well, so buying these better performing stocks has worked for your portfolio. In the long run, actually, price momentum is not a bad strategy to follow, because in a portfolio of stocks, where stocks are going up, they continue to go up until something breaks them. And it's not disconnected with what Warren Buffett does, because best companies actually perform in the long run, deliver long-term returns and deliver returns year after year after year with almost no break. Sure. So that is why it works actually. We see this changing a little bit as growth momentum in India recovers. Our view is that growth is bottoming out and a lot of the macro is seeing its worst point. Interest rates will come off, the CAD will come off, the fiscal deficit will come out, growth will recover, and when that happens, there will be a shift in portfolios, there will be a shift in performance. More cyclical stuff will come to the fore, which has actually done quite poorly in the last 5 years, and high ROE, high free cash flow will take a backseat for some time. So we see that change coming in the next 12 months.
Yeah, but is it something you would recommend to investors to look to make that shift away from free cash flow and ROE into the cyclicals?
See, it's all a function of time frame. If somebody is making a 5-year investment, it doesn't matter. Styles is irrelevant. But if you're managing a portfolio very actively with a 6 to 12 month view, then you have to be focused on styles because they can actually produce outsized returns. In the long run, it's all about earnings growth. So who cares about style? But yeah, if you're taking it from a 6 to 12 month perspective, then I think you have to be careful about being over-invested in high ROE, high free cash flow stocks because they may actually underperform. As growth recovers, cyclicals will come back.
Sunil, I was reading the Business India yesterday, and I think there you've talked about mid-cap funds, if I'm not mistaken. And you said, I think mid-caps will generate better returns, provided one has a 5-year view, right? As valuations of well-managed mid-cap companies have become attractive. So you seem to be a little more, a risk taker than, both Rhythm and Nilesh out here. And I think you are advocating the fact that there is opportunity in mid-caps. There are some beaten down mid-caps and possibly investors could look at putting money there.
So, there is a book which I read a few months back. It is called A Zebra and the Lion's Den. It's a very interesting old book. It talks about investing in the US. And the situation in the US in the 70s and the 80s was what it is like here, where everyone was hiding. Zebras move in herds, and every zebra wants to be in the center of the herd, because if you're on the side, a lion will come and eat you first. So when you're in the center of the herd, you have this feeling of safety, but the grass there is the least available. I think large caps are the center of the herd zebras. And the zebras on the side are the mid caps, which are eating the best grass, but they have the risk of some of them being eaten away by the lion, and as a result of which no one wants to be there. So I think mid-cap investing is all about that. So you invest in a group of stocks, a few would be eaten away, but the ones who will survive will be the fastest to run. And I think that is what the situation is right now. See, India is a country of entrepreneurs the way US is. Ramdevji mentioned that it is the private companies which grow, the private companies which, kickstart a lot of things in the economy. And necessarily these private companies start from being small companies. So if you see Infosys, it was a very small company, or Bharti was a very small company, or some of the other sectors, they are starting small. A restaurant company necessarily will start small. Internet company will necessarily start small. Media company will necessarily start small. So I think it depends on you, what your, thought process is. So if you are, just interested in playing the GDP growth story and you are contented with your nominal GDP growth rate as far as the equity investment is concerned, stick to quality, stick to large cap. But if you want to create that extra returns by taking some calculated, a little bit of higher risk in well-managed smaller companies, I think definitely there is money to be made. And specifically when we have seen that there have been a lot of, in Nilesh's bhai, that Kali Chaudas ka kachra, but in that kachra cleaning, sometimes some useful things also get thrown away, which is what has happened to some good quality mid-caps. I think this is the time where if you have a view, and I'm being cautious by saying 5 years, because always we used to say 2-3 years is long term, but it has not worked over the last 4-5 years. So we are being a little cautious. My personal view that the returns in the mid-caps might in fact be a little bit more earlier than 5 years. But once beaten, twice shy, so we will be being a little bit more cautious.
Just an extension of this question, Sunil, because there are a lot of people who are in what I would call the not so organized sectors, like the restaurants and the gold companies. We actually had somebody from a gold company here this morning who are now getting into the listed space. They are actually coming and getting themselves listed. And the issue out there is I don't have too much confidence in the brand possibly. I don't know, how much of their business is actually in cash and how much of their business is actually, what is the quality of accounting. So how much of a risk could you take in these? Because there are a lot more of these kind of people who are now approaching equity markets to get listed and sort of approach investors.
Ultimately, the balance sheet will give away everything. So, it's very, very clear, as an accountant, if you see the balance sheet and if you see the cash flows, and if you see that profits are being made but free cash flows doesn't come, so I think that's the first sign where you start to create a doubt. And from our perspective, frankly, there was a time when you could take extra risk. This is a time when you have to be a little bit cautious because environment is not as conducive to taking risk. So in 2005-6, you took a risk in a bad company, you still made returns. Now, if you take risk in a good company, you're not necessarily going to make returns. So I think right now you have to be very, very cautious, very apprehensive, specifically in sectors which you mentioned where there can be an element of cash. But all said and done, you will know by the pedigree, by meeting the companies, by following their financials for a period of time, that among even the sectors which might be prone to such kind of things, there might be good companies. And sectors which are very, very clean, there might also be companies which might not be as clean. So I think it's a call which will come with a sustained sort of follow-up rather than a one-time effort.
Sure. May just coming to what you think would look good in India. I think in your last call to your investors in the Excel fund, you actually mentioned large corporate India is very under-leveraged. And and has a large capacity to grow if incentives are right. I do not know what those incentives are, but you said incentives are right. And therefore, you were positive on industrials, consumer discretionary, and financials. Just a little question that, for example, industrials seem to be stuck against a wall from what I heard from Ramdeo, policy wall and stuff like that. Financials still seem to be reeling from, a lot of the stressed assets. So how exactly do I interpret your style and what do you think is attractive at this point of time to invest in?
See, we are all talking about, from what I hear, the risk in investing in these kind of stocks, say mid-caps or cyclicals, those kind of stock. But if you turn things around and say, what is the risk? What is the risk when the largest retailing company in a country of 1 billion people is not even $1 billion in market cap? Or 1 billion people who have nothing to do but the chief passion is watching cricket and watching movies. The largest, or in the combined market cap of all the multiplexes in the country may not even be $1 billion. So where is the risk? I mean, risk is all in the time frame, I think. It's not so much in the valuations. It's just the risk of being there for long enough for you to make the money that you justified if you stick around for a long term. The incentives, frankly, I don't think that I talked about are not the fiscal kind of incentives, but it is just the sentiment that needs to change, the incentive in terms of improving sentiment. The good thing is that at least in the last 6 months, since September, there seems to be a clear understanding of the problem. I think the first step in trying to solve a problem is to acknowledge that there's a problem, and very clearly at least the politicians have understood. And it's only a matter of time before the bureaucracy starts responding. And we've met a lot of policymakers in the last 1 year, again and again. They're all speaking the same language. Obviously in India there's always going to be a slip between the cup and the lip. So by the time they acknowledge the problem, by the time they get down to solving it, and by the time it get executed, there may be a time gap. But I think very clearly the policy paralysis, the worst is over, I would say. And they are talking, and we know, we all read the newspapers, whether it's coal pooling or approval of the large gas pooling, even they are talking about, which is not even in the horizon. But a lot of the negatives that are associated with sentiment are getting addressed. Even as we speak, a large steel project has been approved today. So they are really getting down to business. And as far as I understand, the Cabinet Committee on Infrastructure is apparently going to meet, or is already meeting every 15 days, which is a very, very serious commitment to the process.
Sure. Ramdev, may I come to you? I mean, many of us are closet Warren Buffett fans. You are out in the open. And I think in your December wealth creation study, you talked about economic moats, if I'm not mistaken. And I think Warren Buffett has referred to this quite often, where he said that you need to look at competitive advantage and try and sort of find out whether somebody's got a moat and invest into that. And you said one needs to invest into companies that have got economic moats. And as I look into that, you also seem to suggest that the index constituents are the best companies to look for, where there are economic moats. So are you suggesting that at this point of time it would be best to invest into, index companies? Or you need to go out and look for those moats?
So the conclusion is that if you're not competent to find those companies with economic moat, index itself is filled with a lot of companies which have economic moat. almost 60-70% of the companies, or at least the weights in Nifty or Sensex, is loaded with a lot of very good companies. In fact, yesterday only I went through all the 30 companies of Sensex, and I was surprised that quality is astonishingly good. I mean, there are hardly one or two which are really questionable. So actually when you buy a Sensex or Nifty, you are buying into wonderful set of companies. Wonderful set of companies. And there will be very few, and fortunately in India, we have a lot of fund managers who have been actually bidding on 5-year, 10-year basis by handsome margin. So hats off to them that they have done such wonderful job. But basically index itself has delivered about 18% including dividend for last 32 years. There is no reason to believe that in next 10-15 years we will not be able to match on a ongoing basis. So, but my respect for index constituents have gone up significantly after this study. That index itself is made up of a very high quality material. So if you are not competent to kind of choose a stock or figure out where to buy, when to buy, I think the best way is to buy low cost, very low expense ratio, index ETF or index funds into the portfolio, but complete your equity allocation. You know, if you have 50% of your, or 30%, 25% of your financial savings of 1 crore or 2, you want to put in equities and you're not competent to find which stock, when, how, I think it is the best is to go through the equity route till you find somebody who can advise you on picking up stocks. So I think
So what you're saying is that if you're not competent to find companies that have economic moats, it is better to stay invested in the index as a retail investor.
Yeah.
And if you have the competence, then you need to go out and look for those companies that have economic moat. So I think at the end of the day, the consensus seems to be that quality will work, and if you could look for those quality companies, and obviously everybody defines qualities in his own way. Maybe Nilesh has got polarization, you've got free cash and ROE, you've got the good mid caps, he's got the deleveraged companies, you've got the index companies. But if you can look at quality the way you see quality and invest in those companies, you will make money over time.
One point, if you look at this, in the stock market, 95%, 98% of the problems with us and more probably with the investors is because of low quality companies. They find their entry into the portfolios in 2 times. Either they're extremely cheap, so people buy because they are very cheap, or they look to be an emerging blue chip in good times, and they're actually as big a duffer as always they were. And they find place and they become long-term investment in the portfolios. So, bringing low-quality companies in the portfolio is the biggest danger, and people have been suffering for centuries, and they'll keep suffering for centuries, but that's the thing to avoid.
Sure. I think before we open out the session to questions and answers, I'll just go through a quick rapid-fire thing, and I mean, maybe as short as you can. And I'll start with Nilesh. Just 3 questions. Index level below 17,000 on the Sensex, between 17,000 and 20,000, about 20,000 for 2014 March.
About 20,000.
Okay. In the next 5 years, CAGR return for investors in equity markets, more than 20%, 10 to 20%, less than 10%.
If you are Ramdev quality, more than 100%.
Great.
If your funds are managed by Sunil and Mihir, 200%. If you are going to follow Rhythm's advice, 300%.
Okay. Yeah. But
And if you are going to follow my advice, 20%.
20%. Okay. So that's good. And lastly, just a question. The government's coming out with 55,000 crores of PSU divestment. And I thought I must ask this question. If you had the money, if investors, would you put your money into those PSUs which the government is going to disinvest?
At a price, yes.
At a price, yes. Okay. Rhythm index level 17,000, 20,000?
20 plus.
Okay, about 20,000. Equity returns next 5 years?
Defined by Sensex?
Yeah.
Yeah, ballpark 17-18%, maybe
Okay,
edging to
so
20.
10 to 20%?
Edging to 20, yeah.
Yeah,
Just
10 to
about.
20%. So you're a tad lower than Rhythm, who thinks you deliver 300. And would you put your money into the PSU divestment?
At a price, I agree with Nilesh. I mean, everything at a price is...
But you think they're good quality companies to put money into?
See, there is a danger in some of them because they operate in monopolies which may break down. We've seen that in the past. A lot of public sector companies had monopolies which went away, and then the valuations actually came off. So you have to be very careful about these. There's also a problem with respect to how they are how they are currently managing their cash flows. So you have to evaluate that as well.
Sunil, index levels below 17,000, 17,020, above 20? Above 20,000. Okay, I'll answer that question for you. Okay. Equity returns for the next 5 years?
Frankly, I feel equity would be the only asset class which would comfortably beat the inflation.
Right. And given the fact that we have anyway averaged 10.5% inflation, you wouldn't think that we get anything less than 20%?
I think next 5 years we should actually make 10 years returns, because last 5 years nothing has happened.
Yeah, so if you make that, then you got 30%. Okay. And would you bet your money on the PSU divestment?
We have been positive, but not on all companies, as Rhythm and Nilesh also said. So I think we are definitely positive given the valuations at which they are trading in. So hopefully at a good valuation, we definitely would be in.
Sure. Mihir, index levels of
20,000, yes.
at 20,000. So I think we're getting to a consensus of 20,000. Consensus are very dangerous, right? But
People are expecting about 12 to 15% earnings growth.
okay, so you're saying 20,000, and equity returns for the next 5 years, if you had to go back to your retail investors,
Well, base case would be 15%.
without any adjustment for the currency.
Yeah. So Indian rupee base
Right.
case is 15%, but I'm hoping it'll be more close to what Sunil said, because we need to make up for
So
5
you're in the
years.
cap of 15%, cap of 15%. Good.
Base case,
would you,
minimum.
yeah, would you put your money into PSUs?
Yes, we would.
This 55,000 crores.
We've done
You
that
will
in the
be
past,
putting
and
your
we'll be,
money.
yes.
Ramdeo, index levels about 20,000?
Looks like.
Okay, good. So looks like.
Yeah.
And index returns for the next, equity returns for the next 5 years on a CAGR basis?
I always expect from any point of time double in 5 years. So that's my expectation from here also.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a 15% compound rate.
So you would say a 15% compounded
Yeah,
CAGR.
one should see, if it gives us 25%, we are very happy. But the expectation has to be set at little more reasonable level of about 15%.
Yeah. And do you think the PSU divestment of 55,000 crores would be a good buy? Rather than, do you think there are good companies to buy into that as a
Yeah, there
company?
are some interesting companies, but I don't have money to buy.
Okay, right, fine. That's good. Okay, so I think, the consensus clearly seems to be that, last 5 years may have been difficult for equity markets, but equity markets would have bottomed out, and I think the next couple of years are going to be good years to get into equity market, and as Sunil said, equity will be the only asset class that will outperform inflation in any significant manner. And therefore, I think the advice that I think this room should leave with is that if you're willing to stay invested for 5 years and willing to look at, the quality companies, equity is something you will make money on. I think we can open out the session for some quick questions, or we can close it out there. Okay. Yeah, sorry, somebody did have a question out there, so. Yeah, you need to get him a mic. So we'll have one question and then we will close up, yeah.
Hello. Shashi, assuming a situation presently, small investors are just around 1.5%. All of us, we are giving you authorization. Can you tell us any plan from 1.5% to 4.5%? The prospective investors are to be encouraged. What plan can you suggest?
No, I don't think I understood your question, so you'll have to.
Presently, small investors are less than for 1.5%.
1.5% of what?
Overall equity.
Savings.
Oh, savings. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
That is
household
to be,
savings. Yeah.
It is to be improved. Fine.
Right.
From 1.5% to it has to reach 5% within 1 year.
Okay.
Fine. In such kinds, we have to concentrate on the prospective small investors.
Okay.
What kind of plan can you suggest?
I mean, a plan as a what?
You have to suggest a plan.
No, I think the only way you can get this kind of money is give them a huge tax arbitrage, I suspect. Yeah, that's the only way people put money into this, no? If you want to raise savings so much.
In Germany, they have concentrated on the financial reporting, quality of financial reporting. And chartered financial analysts also recently in January, they have surveyed in 140 countries, and they have done in the 113,000 members of Chartered Financial.
So you're talking about education.
Yeah, that survey shows
talking about investor
quality of
education.
financial reporting is to be improved.
Right.
What
No,
is
no,
your
I
opinion?
quite agree with you. See, these are all, these don't happen in the next 1 year. So I think we are, these are they're going to happen sometime in the future. So I don't think it's, appropriate for us to talk about investor education at this point of time. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. If you have any questions for the panel members, you can ask. You're not supposed to ask me questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, this is M.K. Chauhan from Asian Center for Corporate Governance and Sustainability. I am very glad as well as sad, to hear this panel. Why? Because there is only one panelist who mentioned more than once the quality of governance.
Quality of governance.
Quality
Yeah,
of governance.
right.
There is another panelist who said that it is very difficult to measure. There is one panelist who's mentioned about quality of management. So I'd like to understand as to why so much of low weightage on the quality of governance and why it is difficult to measure,
So
particularly Rhythm.
Yeah, so I'll flip this question on to Rhythm because Rhythm did talk about quality of governance being very important in investing.
My reply was in the context, but I've grown up with the So basically, I've grown up with the BC Forbes quote that the earnings of a company can be good or bad in a year, but if you back a company with honest management and intelligent management, in the end the results will be good. So management is the most critical input in investing in stocks. It goes without saying. I think we are talking issues beyond that. So that starting point is assumed here. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nilesh, Rhythm, Sunil, Mir and Ramdev. And I'm sure the audience enjoyed this panel discussion.
Thank you very much to our panelists. Now may I request Mr. Nipun Mehta to hand over the mementos, please. Please. To the moderator, Mr. Sashi Krishnan. Yes, please. Yeah. To Mr. Rhythm Desai. To Mr. Sunil Singhania. To Mr. Nilesh Shah. To Mr. Mihir Vora. To Mr. Ramdeo Agarwal. Thank you very much. May I request for a group photo over here, please? Yeah, fine. Policy. Thank you very much.